From the Storm Tracker 33 Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Jesse Gunkel with the very latest on Cristobal. It is a tropical storm and it has made landfall. That is the latest information from the National Hurricane Center between 5 and 5:30, just between Grand Isle and the mouth of the Mississippi. Again, they confirmed the winds were just shy of 50 miles per hour at landfall, now making its way inland at this point. Obviously, you can see here that we've got those winds moving at about 50 miles per hour, still heading north at about 7 miles per hour, so that really hasn't changed much. Obviously, we are getting closer to New Orleans. Again, that's from the latest advisory at around, well, so now 50 miles, you can see here around 5:10. So again, that is the information as the system moves forward. Jasmine, can you put this in motion for the time being? And main thing is you can still see that the majority of the stronger, heavier rain bands still remain well towards the east of the center of the storm. Now again, this same band is eventually expected to move back into the capital area at this point. What I do also want to point, obviously, out, as you can see, these storms really starting to fire up well towards the east. The majority of impacts today, obviously, from Biloxi, Gulfport, Bay St. Louis, all those areas in between, Ocean Springs, all the way into Mobile Bay. However, we had a lot of heavy rainfall and a decent storm surge kind of push up those seas in Lake Pontchartrain and even Lake Maurepas. So, again, some minor flooding in some locations. Obviously, the threat really hasn't been too much rainfall. But as the system makes its way inland, it should start to weaken. And we really got lucked out today. We had a lot of dry air filter into the center of this system, and that completely kind of choked the system off, at least for the western half of this storm. So here you go. 45 miles per hour expected to be early morning as it makes its way just across the state line into Mississippi. By the time we get into the evening hours and heading into Monday, notice winds already down to about 30, back to a tropical depression, and then it quickly races off towards the Great Lakes and produces a bunch of heavy rainfall. In fact, it could be a big rainmaker for the state of Illinois and Wisconsin. As you see here, winds 50, gusting 65 now. And obviously the majority of those stronger winds right near the center or just a hair to the east of this storm. We're talking stronger winds all the wind field right here, pushing all that water inland. Not so much for us. Our winds have been rather light, just kind of gusting out there. But you can see, keep an eye on this rain band. We do have some moderate pockets a little bit south of I-10. And then notice here, good news is it does weaken a little bit as it approaches us, but that extends well into the Gulf of Mexico, which means there is an unlimited supply of moisture. It's a conveyor belt, and that's going to continue to pile on the water in a lot of locations, and that's why there is currently a concern for flash flooding, mainly for southern Mississippi, anything from really I-55. So if you live in St. Tammany, you could have some issues, Washington Parish, Tangipahoa, and then everything towards the east, Hancock County in Mississippi. And that goes all the way really to the Mobile area at this point. So watch your Doppler radar. And as you see here, we've got some rainfall out there. It's going to be somewhat steady over the next few hours. And as you see, again, keeping an eye on this heavy band that's now starting to cross I-55, pushing towards Bogalusa and then eventually to areas north of the Hammond area. A couple more moderate pockets a little bit further south. And really, just because the system is kind of slowly moving now towards the north, it has kind of slowed down some of that forward speed a little bit. Again, that potential for rain, that's obviously our issue going into the evening hours. Still looking at a lot of those bands kind of extending well towards the west, but we've got a pretty big gap in between here from New Orleans southward down towards, I would say, Venice area, and even towards Grand Isle. Not seeing much in the way of rainfall at this hour, just some stronger winds out there. So again, you can see that the majority of the rain, quite a few miles east of here, right around Biloxi. So we're talking about a 2 to 3 hour drive. They saw the impacts, obviously, for us, western side, and not much. Almost dry over in Acadiana. Again, only trace amounts in some locations. That was Doppler indicated. But as you see, here's the reason why it's so dry. All that dry air, and at one point moved right into the center of this storm. And you can see just kind of choked the system off. Didn't allow it to rapidly intensify just before landfall. Because of that, again, it kind of made the system collapse a little bit. But still, dealing with some showers and thunderstorms, but not so much for us. I do believe our impacts are going to start to drop as we head into those evening hours once we get past that kind of band that moves through. So just showing you some of the current wind speeds: 14 in New Roads, 15 in Baton Rouge, 9 in Kentwood, 10 in Hammond, 15 in the Slidell area. A couple gusts, a little bit stronger obviously out there. We're talking 28 in Slidell, 24 in Hammond, 26 in New Iberia, and also 26 over in Lafayette. So again, not much that's going to cause too much in the way of damage, but because it's pretty soggy in a lot of locations, we do have to worry about some limbs maybe falling on power lines. That's why there is that potential that we could see some power outages going into the evening hours. I do want to point out that we still remain underneath that tropical storm warning for our entire viewing area, and that's going to be the case overnight going into tomorrow. Storm surge, good news is we already hit high tide in the northern Gulf. Waters are starting to drop back into the Gulf. Now again, what you're seeing here, all of these areas, this is outside of the levee system, outside of the water reduction system, which is great because 3 to 5 here, again, that's really where we're going to get at. Now the system is inland. Still, again, their potential because of that persistent southeasterly flow, most of that water is still kind of getting pushed inland, but 2 to 4 south of here, Grand Isle area, and then Boothville all the way up to St. Bernard Parish, and then in this really all the way to about Biloxi at this point. So again, that's Bay St. Louis area. Obviously going to get the biggest issues at this point. Lake Maurepas, Lake Pontchartrain, we're talking 1 to 3, but there are the potential impacts. Obviously 2 to 4, if that band sets up on us for a couple hours, well then our rain totals are going to start to climb a little bit. Flash flooding, probably the biggest issue tonight, some water on some of our roadways. I don't see it being that much of an issue for our rivers and streams. Definitely the Comey should be fine. Obviously, it's kind of low at this point, so it's got room to swell a little bit. Same thing with the Amite. Again, we're not going to get to major or even record levels. Again, I'm not too worried about that. But as you see here, again, we could see a little bit of flooding on roadways. Again, those areas that are typically prone to flooding, if your backyard floods, well, again, we could see some heavy downpours, mainly north of I-12, and then maybe an occasional funnel cloud, but I still think that threat remains east of I-55. Coastal flooding 1 to 3 out there. It's because of that, all that water getting pushed inland. And storm surge, well, we should be reaching its max now as we make our way into the evening hours, and just some gusty winds out there. But here is that current path once again. Now inland, just between Grand Isle and the mouth of the Mississippi, and eventually it's going to make more of a westward jog, but not for long, and then it quickly gets sucked up and driven off towards the Gulf Lakes and towards the northeast as we make our way into the next couple days. We're talking Monday moving into Tuesday. Now I do want to point out that we still have the potential for more rain tonight and even throughout the day tomorrow. We really don't dry out until we cut the tail end of this system off, and that may not even happen until very early on Tuesday. So still a very soggy pattern ahead of us. Honestly, if you do have any questions, since this is Facebook, drop us a line. We'll try to get you through the evening. We're going to watch the system very closely. If you haven't done so already, make sure you download our app. It's free, and it has all the very latest information. If you have reports of flooding, please send us that information. You can go to news@broudcom. If you have any pictures that you want to send us, so we love to see them. We will continue to keep a very close eye on this system overnight. We have complete team coverage, and we'll even kind of walk you through with more newscasts this evening. We've got another one on Fox at 9 o'clock tonight. We've got another one at 10 on NBC Local 33. And if anything is warranted, if we do get a tornado warning, a severe thunderstorm warning, anything in between, flash flood warning, well, we'll relay that information to you. And just make sure you follow us on social media, obviously, for the very latest. Thanks for joining us.